Okay, everybody, today we're going to start talking about arthropods, which is an awesome subject. Give me a second to get this swapped around. Hold on. All right, check out my cool little creepy crawlies that I've got there. So let's get going. Arthropods, there's a lot to learn here. You could actually spend an entire year just on arthropods. Now, this is the largest phylum on our planet, so it includes the most species of any phylum out there by a long shot. That means that they're a very successful phylum. That means that they're a very diverse phylum as well. Now, a lot of times when we're talking about arthropods, we're talking about bugs. And so what are bugs? So it depends on your perspective. It depends on what we're talking about. So spiders are carnivores. They feed on other bugs. But what is a bug? That answer may surprise you. So interestingly enough, in most Western cultures, all insects are known as bugs. However, the real meaning for bug is very different in a zoological perspective. Bugs are a group of insects that belong specifically to an order, Hemiptera. Bugs share most of other insects' features, but they become unique with respect to with some of their other characteristics. So they're unique with some of those characteristics. So true bugs, what they have is they have semi-hardened wings. They have either piercing or sucking mouth parts. They're usually warm-blooded parasites, not always. And they show something called incomplete metamorphosis. And metamorphosis is something that we'll be talking about. It means to change. So when you see that word metamorphosis, think of a butterfly changing from a caterpillar into a butterfly. Now, some examples of bugs are the the water scorpion, water bugs, aphids, stink bugs, tree hoppers, and spiders. Now remember though, not all insects are bugs, but bugs are insects. So only those insects that have mouth parts that are beak-like and they use for piercing and sucking are classified as bugs. Now spiders are not classified as bugs. There's something called an arachnid, but they do belong to this phylum Arthropoda, or the arthropods. Now spiders are awesome creatures. They really help us out a lot. They help reduce pest populations in and around homes, landscapes, gardens, and crops. They feed on insects, other spiders, and what scientists also call arthropods, so other arthropods. Now, let's talk a little bit more about arthropods. And today is mostly an introduction to them. We're going to get going into the specifics of the different groups of arthropods a little later. But arthropods represent 84% of all known species of animals on this planet. So that's pretty crazy. So where does arthropods fall in the spectrum as far as the animal kingdom? If you look to the right, you can see where arthropods fit in. They're a member of the invertebrate family. So they're animals without backbones. Now arthropods have their own groups. They have four major groups. There's the crustaceans, there's the arachnids, the myriapods, and the insects. So crustaceans are usually in the water, not always, and they're things like crabs and lobsters and shrimp. Arachnids are spiders, also ticks, also scorpions. Myriapods are millipedes and centipedes. And then insects are true bugs. At least one order of insects is called the true bugs. Now if we look at the characteristics that arthropods share, all arthropods have these unique characteristics. They all have external skeletons. So we would say an exoskeleton. That means it's on the outside of their body. So usually it's some sort of hard chitinous shell. They have segmented bodies, like you can see in this centipede here. Each segment, or even in the spider here, we have one segment, this big round posterior end on this black widow, And then here's another segment that you can see here. And then one of the biggies is they have jointed appendages. That means that their legs have joints. You can see them a little bit on this spider here, also on this animation. It's a little bit harder to see on the centipede, but I'll show you a little bit more specifically in a moment. Now, when we say appendages, that could be a wing, that could be a mouth part, that could be a leg. And so like I was saying, arthropods are known for their jointed appendages. So in Greek, arthros means joint and podos means foot. So you put those together and it means jointed foot is what their name arthropods means. So even though arthropods have distinct features, which makes them their own group, their own phylum, they do have some similar characteristics that other animals also have. So like a lot of the animals that we study this year, they have bilateral symmetry. These guys have an open circulatory system as opposed to a closed circulatory system like you and I do. They do reproduce sexually generally, and they do have a digestive system with 2 openings. And remember, the first animal that we saw with that was the nematodes. Now, when we're talking about their skeleton, like I said, they have a skeleton on the outside, and we call that an exoskeleton. So anytime you see exo in science, that refers to something on the outside. Arthropods have a waxy coating on the outside of their bodies called an exoskeleton. And it does a lot. It does protect it, like a skeleton protects you and I do. But being waxy, it protects the animal and prevents them from losing water due to evaporation. So this organism, as it evolved from the oceans onto the land, this was an adaptation that allowed it to evolve to a life on land, is by having this waxy coating that preserves some of the water. Now, water animals are surrounded by water, but land animals, they have to have a way that they don't dry out. So this little adaptation of this waxy exoskeleton could suggest that arthropods may have been the first animals to live on land because of their exoskeleton keeping them from losing water. Now, with the good comes the bad. As an arthropod matures and grows larger, its exoskeleton cannot expand with its growth. So to prevent the animal from being trapped inside its own exoskeleton, the animal will occasionally shed their exoskeleton, and then they'll grow a larger one to compensate for their new growth. So this process of shedding exoskeletons is called molting. And you can see that on this right-hand picture right here. You have this arthropod, and this kind of white-looking arthropod behind it is its old exoskeleton. So it will crawl out of its skin, literally, this exoskeleton. The new exoskeleton is already formed underneath it. It's soft at this point, but once it crawls out, it will harden like their former exoskeleton. Now, as I was saying, I forgot that I had a video about molting. Check it out. This is a crustacean, which is a type of arthropod, getting ready to molt. He'll slow down here pretty soon. So you can see him slowing down now, and that exoskeleton's going to open up, and then he's going to back out of his old skin. Boom. Now notice it looks like there's another of them. It looks like he copied himself, but that's just the outside skin. It is a different color. That's because it's still soft right now. It will harden up, and he'll look just like he did before, just a little bit bigger. So people that own animals that molt often will come in and see this molt in the bottom of their aquarium or whatever container they have their animal in, and they'll think, oh my gosh, he died. Nope, he's just growing and he's happy and healthy. Now, so after an arthropod is molted, its new skeleton is soft for a short time, so they're vulnerable at that point. The softness is a weakness, this softness is a weakness which provides less protections from predators until it hardens. And so usually they'll go into hiding for that reason. All arthropods have segmented bodies. Segmentation in biology refers to the division of animal planes in a series of repetitive segments like you're seeing in this video, this millipede over here on the right. You can see all those individual segments. Segmented bodies is important for allowing free movement and development of certain body parts, and segments also allow for regeneration in specific individuals, depending on the animal we're talking about. Now, an arthropod may have up to 3 sections of its body, including a head and something we call a thorax, which would be similar to like your chest cavity where your heart and lungs is. That would be mostly your thorax. And then also the abdomen. And for us, the abdomen is where our digestive system is. In some groups of arthropods, several body segments become jointed into distinct different sections. Now, looking more specifically at those jointed appendages, and you can see them better in this little animation of this animal jumping and how it jumps. So a joint is where, 2 different bones come together, or 2 different body parts come together. So many arthropods have jointed appendages that are attached to their bodies. The joints in the appendages give the animal flexibility and enable it to move in a more variety of directions. Arthropod appendages tend to be highly specialized tools used for moving, not always moving, also for getting food, for reproducing, and also sensing the environment. Most arthropods have appendages called antennae. Antennae is plural, antenna is singular. So antennae are attached to the head that contains sense organs, so that's cephalization that we talked about earlier this year. The appendages of arthropods may either be biramorous or they could be uniramorous. And so for uni means 1 and bi means 2. So uniramorous means it's a limb comprised or made up of a single series of segments attached end to end. Biramorous means that the limb branches into 2, so just like the prefix implies. And each branch consists of a series of segments attached end to end. Now, the legs of insects and myriapods, and remember myriapods are centipedes and millipedes, are uniramorous. In crustaceans, the first antennae are uniramorous, but the second antennae are biramorous, as are the legs in most species. Now, this is a nice little summary table here, and so make sure that you get all of this complete in your notes, so you may need to pause this for a second. So this is a good comparison of the largest arthropod groups. There's way more groups than just these 4, but these are the 4 that we're going to concentrate on. So if we look at the number of body sections, crustaceans have 2 or 3. If we look at pairs of legs, crustaceans have 5 or more pairs. And if we look at pairs of antennae, then crustaceans have 2 pairs of antennae. Now, if we compare that to arachnids, so spiders, scorpions, mites, they have 2 body sections. They have 4 pairs of legs, so 8, and they don't usually have any antenna. They don't have antenna. Myriapods, 2 body sections, many pairs of legs, and 1 pair of antenna. Insects have 3 body sections. They have 3 pairs of legs, so 6, and then they usually have 1 pair of antenna. Okay, so you might need to pause that so you can copy this information into your notes. Now, as far as the diversity of arthropods, and this is where we're going to end today's lecture, next class we'll start focusing on one of those 4 groups. But biodiversity, that concept, it's the variety of life that exists on our planet. The greater the biodiversity is on our planet, the healthier species are. We can think about this variety in many different scales, from the diversity of genetic material within a single species to the diversity of biomes within an entire geographical region. Now, so far there's been more than 1 million discovered species of arthropods, and this is more than any other species discovered, and like I was saying earlier, this is 84% of all known living animals. So arthropods are considered the most successful members of the animal kingdoms, not us humans. And they've been designed to survive, and they're very, very good at it. So check out this little arthropod animation about their marine arthropod body plan. Oops. Didn't play for me. Hold on, let me get back to that.
With their many joints, each leg has tremendous flexibility. Tendons attached to powerful muscles produce a range of motion. To help guide them through their world, arthropods developed a package of onboard sensors, appendages like antennas, and the first complex eyes capable of perceiving sharp images. But most importantly, their legs and body segments could easily adapt to almost any new opportunity. A small evolutionary push turns a walking leg into a grasping claw.
The power of the jointed appendages. It's a huge adaptation that makes this group so successful.
Take the segmented swimming tail of the lobster, tuck it underneath, and you've got a sand-burrowing crab.
Okay. Now, in class, we're going to also talk about people eating bugs. So I hope you'll enjoy that. All right, that's all. Make sure you get your guided notes finished, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.